changed personality. Our perception, is it a positive change or is it a negative change? Next, our past experiences. Because if we've had great experience with change in the past, we've had great experience with a certain situation or circumstance in the past, it makes it easier for us to do that. We're always looking for a safety zone. We're always looking for something that's going to make us feel comfortable, it's going to make us feel safe. We're looking for the banister along the staircase, always. Okay? Current events in our lives. Does it make sense to you that your capacity to be able to change when you're 21 without a lot of the financial responsibilities, the professional responsibilities, and the familial responsibilities might be a bit different than it is after they come along? I know that was the case for Janet and I. We become a little bit more fixed in our ways, want a bit more permanency perhaps. So current events in our lives. The other thing is if someone happened to have gained a job or lost a job, again, it's going to shift and change the way we adapt. So I want to take a look at 3 different stages. And this comes from a great book. If you can ever look up or review William Bridges' information, this was written probably almost 40 years ago. To this date, it is still very current information. I encourage you to try and get a hold of it. Organizational change in particular, but certainly family change. And it kind of looks backwards because we're going to look at the endings, and then we're going to look at the neutral zone, and then we're going to look at a new beginning. And these are the stages that we go through. And like anything else, we don't go through them smoothly. But if nothing else, let's have you understand it. Okay? So, first thing is we're going to begin with an ending. It's a difficult thing because no one likes something, especially if it's comfortable for us to end. So, for example, pardon me, we referenced a move. How many of you in the room had a home in a location that you really liked, and you moved perhaps by choice? Okay, look at the expressions on your faces. And sometimes we have to do it, sometimes we do it because the family is growing, sometimes we do it because economically it's a smart thing to do. Now, for those of you who did that, was it in any way difficult to bring that to an end? Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm going to reference how that, in fact, impacted me at one point. The other, there are going to be natural endings in our lives. Has anyone launched a child off to college, university, or marriage at this point? Anyone done that yet? An ending? Sure it is. I mean, you're always going to continue to see them, but it's an end of a particular type of relationship. Has anyone changed jobs where you had a great group of people and you've changed jobs because it might have been better for you, but it is an ending just the same? Okay, a lot of us have gone through it. And we can go on and on and on. We have them on a weekly basis, in fact. You can go on a vacation, and the vacation comes to an end, and you're saying goodbye to a group of people. You get the point in that what happens is we have losses, and the losses I'm going to talk about. There's a loss of identity. If you're talking about a move to a home, you're part of a community. Loss of a job. If someone steps down from a position into retirement, most people say, oh, good for you, congratulations, you're retired. Well, in fact, there's a major change in the loss of identity. One of the things that I do as a business advisor, if you will, and from a personal perspective, I'll work with CEOs as they're about to step down. And there's a huge loss in identity. And I'll speak to that in a second. Loss of identity, loss of security, loss of what's familiar. That's a very, very troubling thing for people. Familiar is comfortable. Even for a guy like me who's surrounded by unfamiliar, there's something about, if you were to walk into my office, and I've had that same office for 5 years. Now some of you who have any mental health background are going to say, oh, this guy's got a problem. You're probably right. But couches and the pillows are all remaining where they were when they came in. When I leave at the end of the day, I want it to be able to look like that because I come back a week later, there's something comfortable about that for me. So it's familiar. And a loss of relationships, probably the most significant piece for us all. Okay? But it also, as I said, represents a gain. Someone I was working with recently said is actually a hockey player who was stepping down. And he came in to see me before he actually announced his retirement. And one of the things that he said is, Bill, what do I say to people now? I go to a cocktail party and we meet one another. And they say, well, what do you do for a living? And I've always said, I am this. And now I have to say, I used to be this. With anyone who's retired from any position, it doesn't have to be a professional sport, you don't have to be a C-level manager, anything. when we go from this to used to be this, it changes our identity considerably. Okay? This is a bit difficult to read, but let me talk about that neutral zone. The neutral zone is kind of the place of no return, meaning that you're there now, whoops, what am I going to do? And it's emotional, it has a physical impact on us, and it also changes our behavior. I'm going to give you one personal example that will illustrate it all. Probably, I'm going to guess on this, about 12 years ago, Janet and I moved from our first home in Newmarket, Ontario, to our second and current home. And I love our current home, absolutely love our current home. But I love the other home. I mean, you kind of got that messy now. I'm the guy who doesn't like to go and move the furniture around. Now, this has probably never happened to any of you, but it's happened to me. So I'm going to say this so you can actually laugh on my behalf. I'm coming home after having moved into this nice new house, and I took the wrong road. And I drove toward our old house. Has anyone ever done that before? Okay, all right. I still have you, I think. I still have you. I didn't do it once. I did it 3 times. Now, the 3rd time was a bit problematic. And you're going to think I'm lying to you, true story. I drove right to the front door, parked in the parking lot, got out of the car, suddenly realized, holy shoot, those curtains are different. I literally did. So by this time, I'd actually met the people who'd moved into our house, and I sat there like this in the parking lot. I said, I'm pretty friggin' hungry, so I'm wondering what they're having for dinner. I didn't go in, by the way. But I thought, if I'm this close anyway, I might as well go and meet the neighbors. But literally, I drove into the parking lot. And that neutral zone really is to blame. I was somewhere in between. And we are like that all the time whenever we have a significant change in our lives. And this is, in fact, the make or break period. And then we have the new beginning. And the new beginning, as much as it feels fresh, it is exactly that. It is new. It is brand new, and sometimes there's a little bit of discomfort. But we need to be able to first understand what the purpose is. What's the purpose of that new beginning? If it has a purpose to us, then then we will, in fact, invest ourselves much more in it. The next thing is, we got to paint a picture. How many of you have ever had anyone in your life say, establish a goal? Create an image. If in fact you do that, it makes it easier. I did some work with a group of national gymnasts a couple years ago. And one of the things we do with them is we get them to image what result they want. And in order, same sort of thing. If in fact you're attempting to navigate your way through a change and onto something brand new, a new beginning, you need to be able to image that, envision that for yourself. We need to be able to take a step-by-step approach. There's one of my clients, he's a business client, young 24-year-old, very vibrant woman from Miami, Florida, is setting up a brand new business. And we're talking about a retail setting. So she's going to be in touch with a lot of high-end designers and such. And so we talked about her ability to be able to take that step by step. So we're actually setting her up with someone who's going to set up the business plan for her and walk her through, a step-by-step process. Without that, there's a tendency for us to get kind of lost in the mire. And the next one is having some sort of a part to play. We need to participate in that change. If we don't, and we simply do that as a visitor, we're not emotionally invested in it, and it has no way of changing our behavior. Okay? Now this is a little bit different in that we use different coping strategies, and the only things that we're going to focus on really, typical of Pollyanna here, is the positive side of it. But we can cope this way. We can be negative and very direct about it, meaning we can say it, we can avoid it. People are they're always clear that we do not want this particular change. Or we can be very positive and direct. We can illustrate that through our words, through our actions. But we can also be very negative and indirect. I mean, a lot of people in my field would call that passive aggressiveness. You call it whatever you want, but sometimes it's a very indirect way of kind of putting your heels in and saying, I don't want to do this. All right? Now, I'm probably a little bit negative and indirect when it comes to the furniture moving stuff in our household. And the next one is you can be very positive, but also indirect, where you're a bit more subtle. So let's talk a little bit about some of those positives. The question that comes up is, what can I influence? People will actually come forward and they'll think about that and they'll ask that. And that's someone who's very direct and want to be able to make a positive change. You're going to see those in certain meetings. You'll see them in your household. You'll see them in your families, and they actually speak out or they act out very clearly and it is positive. They'll face the problem. They'll attempt to change themselves because they know they need to accommodate. Again, my father-in-law would be one of those. The tendency to be able to brainstorm, come up with alternative solutions is key as well. And being able to set very particular goals. The person who goes at the change in a very direct way, they're also very direct about the goals that they set for themselves. I'm going to reference my daughter again. She's quite a go-getter. She's only 20 years of age, but she's quite a go-getter. And probably when she was in grade 11, I don't know what age that is, but grade 11, she came back from a presentation that her brother was putting on stage. And she got it into her mind she wanted to be able to raise money to build a school in Africa through Free the Children. And she went at it, and within a matter of a couple of hours, she had this whole presentation together. She was going to have a dance in the community and raise money and yada, yada, yada. And so she had established some very, very clear goals and a step-by-step process of how she was going to do it. Now, I didn't know as a dad, how do I listen to this? Do I say, yes, absolutely, you can do this? Pardon me. Do I say to her, Jill, you're in grade 11. I mean, that's a lofty goal. Really? Can you? No. So I just sat and I listened, and she seemed enthusiastic about it. She had those goals. She had the strategy. And eventually she teed up a meeting with Free the Children, with Craig and Mark Kielberger, and they sat in this boardroom together. Here's my grade 11 daughter sitting there, and they said what I thought I was going to say. They said, Jill, that's a lofty goal. You and your friends are going to do this? Has anyone ever seen the movie Anchorman? Has anyone ever seen it? There's a line in there I wasn't aware of, but I found out about that line that day. Jillian looked at them, and she's a cute young girl, and she's got all kinds of energy, but she looks at them square in the face, and she said, people know me. She said, kind of a big deal. Oh my God. Absolutely, she manages change very well because she goes at it and tackles it directly and positively. Okay? Strategies where you can go indirect. Talking about your feelings, molding your own identity, and sometimes people don't even realize you're doing it. Asking for help from managers, from colleagues, from family members, and so on. We can do that. It's kind of the under-the-radar, less direct approach to being able to, and thinking positively. Now, we say that, but people, in fact, don't really pay a lot of attention to it. That capacity to reframe something that we've typically always viewed as negative, and to reframe that as positive, is an art form. Now, I'm going to get a little bit serious with you on this one, because for at least 25 years, I have developed a specialty where I work with survivors of what we call ritual abuse. That's a very, very difficult thing. So anything from Holocaust survivors or Cambodian refugees, or people who have suffered at the hands of cult-based abuses and things like that. And sadly enough, there are more of those experiences out there than there should be. But when people come in, they may come in at 40 or 50 years of age, and those are things that they might have gone through when they were very young. Now, they have a particular image or a picture of that experience. And a typical reframe for me with a 52-year-old woman who might have suffered at the hands of ritual abuse for 14 years, and this is a woman I'm writing a book with right now, a lot of my work is reframing what it is that she managed through, meaning we'll focus on her capacity to have been able to brave through something that is intolerable, to be able to be focused enough to get through that. So that reframe and turning something that could have been interpreted as negative into a positive. Is it just language? Is it semantics? It isn't. It is a redefinition for ourselves of what it is that we've gone through. Does that make sense? And that is key. Okay, so let's talk about that reframe. Make an objective assessment about the situation. An objective means, so most people walk in and they've got this negative view of it. An objective assessment is looking at both sides. So that's a key piece as well. What change you're currently facing, you have to understand it. Understand it from every single angle. Don't just look at the surface. Don't just make assumptions about it, but truly bathe in it and understand it. Sometimes that requires we ask a question.